Welcome to the Workbench and welcome to another episode of Wheels Wings TV. We are back again with another new Tamiya kit kindly provided by the good folks up at Borgfeld, Canada. This is the latest issue of the 124 scale Lotus Europa Special. Let's have a look. This kit was originally issued in 1999, but for 2020, Tamiya have included new photo etch and metal parts. Originally envisioned in 1966 by Colin Chapman as, quote, an affordable sports car with a base suitable for racing, the Europa would by 1972 evolve into the Special model, sporting a 126 horsepower dual overhead cam, 1.5-liter 4-cylinder engine, giving it a respectable 0 to 60 time of 6.6 seconds and a top speed clocked at 123 miles per hour. Ours won't be going quite that fast. Our first step is to prep the body for painting. We will start by affixing the front clip and the lower frame of the rear window. Unfortunately, these seams are not present on the real car and will have to be filled with putty and once dry, sanded smooth. While we have the abrasives out, we will also take care of the mold lines along the rear corners, the edges of the roof, and the front fenders. With all the rough spots smoothed out, we will give the body and engine bonnet a coat of primer in the form of Stynylrez Red Brown. Note this is the older formula, which is much more orange than the currently available one. If you are planning on mounting the rear wing, you will want to have it prepped and primed at this point as well. Now we are ready to lay down the body color. The Europa was available in several colors, however Tamiya only have callouts for Cirrus White, Regency Red, and Black. Tamiya's suggestion of LP21 Italian Red is a bit off the mark, as Regency Red was a deeper, almost burgundy color. LP21 will be closer to Carnival Red, however to my eye, LP50 Bright Red is a much closer match. We've thinned the paint a bit better than equal parts with Mr. Leveling Thinner and will apply it in many light coats, building up the paint slowly so as not to flood the surface, causing runs and drips. Having an airbrush with a larger nozzle and a wider spray pattern is beneficial here. Don't try using your 0.2mm detail airbrush for this type of work. Once we are satisfied with the finish and the paint is showing a nice smooth gloss, set it aside and cover it to allow the paint to fully cure. While we leave the body alone, we can start in the various sub-assemblies. Chassis and suspension components are almost exclusively semi-gloss black and will be painted after initial assembly. While we're at it, we can also paint the engine bay, the trunk, the dashboard, the photo etch grills, and various other bits and pieces. The engine block and transmission halves are glued together along with the starter motor and oil filter. Unlike many North American car kits, Tamiya has included the oil pan with the engine halves instead of having it as a separate part, resulting in an awkward seam that has to be removed. The whole assembly was painted with True Colors metallic tin after a base of gloss black. The cam cover and alternator were stripped of their chrome plating with a quick dip in Castrol Super Clean so they could be painted. However, apparently the moon, stars, and planets were all in correct alignment as we had left the cam cover in just long enough to remove the plating from everywhere except where it's supposed to be. Skills. The exhaust system is painted with extreme metal, pale burnt metal, as well as the carburetors before attaching the photo etch and the metal velocity stacks. Make sure not to install the carburetors until after the chassis is mated to the interior. The kit provides the option of stock Lotus wheels or Watanabe custom wheels. Only the stock wheels are chromed, as the Watanabe wheels were left in a polished alloy finish. These were painted with true color high gloss silver right over the white plastic. Now we can move to the interior. If you're following Tamiya's suggestions, take note as they call it for specific interior colors based on the specific exterior color. Based on the Tamiya suggestions, we will go with the lighter two-tone scheme using AK Gen 3 green ochre and decomposed flesh. Belying its race car pedigree, the Europa comes with two complete 4-point racing harnesses consisting of photo etch buckles and your choice of red, blue, or black self-adhesive belts. Seat belts are a wonderful touch, however the individual belts need to be cut out from their sheet, so take time with a sharp blade and a straight edge. I somehow mixed up the lower half of the shoulder harnesses with those for the lap belt. However, I think it looks just fine nonetheless. If you're feeling adventurous, you could also replace the provided belts with 1/8 inch craft ribbon. The dashboard gets painted with brown for the wood insert, and once the paint is dry, we can apply the various instrument decals. With the body having sufficient time to dry, we can now thoroughly examine the paint for any bits of phlegm that have found their way into the finish. Any blemishes found are taken care of with extreme prejudice by way of wet sanding with a fine Tamiya sanding sponge. With any imperfections removed, we will give the body and engine bonnet a coat of LP9 clear gloss thinned with Mr. Leveling Thinner, and as before, we apply this with many relatively light coats. Once we're happy with the finish, we set the body aside once again to let the clear coat cure. If you decide to use the decals for the gold pinstripes, be very careful if you decide to apply a clear coat over them, as Tamiya's lacquers are known to damage decals if applied too heavily. With the paint and the clear fully cured, we can now apply the chrome window trim. After a botched attempt with a worn-out Molotow pen, we will be using bare metal foil. First, cut a piece of foil larger than the area to be covered. Carefully peel the foil off the backing paper and apply it to the model, pressing it down with a cotton swab. I like to slightly dampen the swab to keep any stray fuzzies from sticking to the foil. Trace the outline of the raised detail with a slightly rounded toothpick, taking care not to tear through the foil. Using a brand new sharp blade, trim away the excess foil. A tip I picked up is to blacken the point of the knife with a permanent marker to eliminate reflections so you know exactly where the tip of the knife is against the reflective foil. After the first piece is done, simply wash, rinse, and repeat for the rest of the window trim, and once done, dip a cotton swab in some odorless thinner or lighter fluid to remove any adhesive residue. With the window trim done, we can now glue the windshield and rear window in place. For this, it is better to use a PVA glue like microcrystal clear, as this will not damage the parts or our paint finish. We will thin this down with some water and flow it around the clear parts much in the same way as you would use extra thin cement. Leave the body inverted for a few hours until the glue has dried. While we're at it, we will also attach the photo etch pieces for the front grille and for the vents in the engine bonnet. With the windows in, we can mate the body to the chassis for adding the lights, bumpers, and the very nice self-adhesive metal transfers. Don't forget to paint the taillights and turn signals with clear red and clear orange as required before installation. With a final wipe down with some Novus 1 Clean and Shine, our Lotus is ready for the showroom. Although I don't find the Europa a particularly attractive car, I can find little fault with Tamiya's kit. Parts fit very well for a 20-year-old tooling, and detail is on par with contemporary North American car kits. The engine bonnet is a very snug fit, so I might suggest shaving down the edges by a few fractions prior to painting. This is the first kit where I've used the metal transfers, and I'm very impressed with these. Revell and Round 2 would do well to start including something similar in their car kits, as most classic American cars were covered with chrome badges and emblems. Provided seatbelts are another nice touch and go a long way to adding more interest to the interior. So if you're a Lotus fan, or just have a love for unique looking 70s sports cars, Tamiya's Lotus Europa should definitely find its way into your stash or onto your workbench. Thank you very much. Catch you next time.